You know, Cleveland, Mississippi, right here in the heart of the Delta. It may not seem like the place for a Trump hotel, but when you meet somebody like Dinesh Chawla, you can understand why the Trump organization was interested in this place. Dinesh is a really good friend of mine. I'm really proud of the interview we did with him. He's an unbelievable human being that loves people. He loves customer service. And when you see what he's doing for the Mississippi Delta, you got to wonder why the world can't have more people like Dinesh Chawla. Hey guys, you're about to watch the third part of the series of Dinesh Chawla. So we can't leave without talking about the new hotel.
Okay. I don't know.
Well, let's start from here. For those that know nothing about what I'm talking about, kind of introduce them to what's going on in Cleveland.
Sure. We came up with the idea that Cleveland needed a good full-service product. We have what we call limited service, which is basically concentrating on rooms, and we do a breakfast in the morning. Full service offers you the opportunity of having meeting facilities, having multiple meals at the property. There's just a broader avenue of prospects for you when you rent that, the room at that property or the meeting facilities. So it evolved from an economical project in the $3-4 million range to something that we thought, let's do something really nice. Create a lot of outdoor venues. That's when I introduced you to the project. You were kind of in that middle stage where we're starting to add buildings to it. So we went from 1 building to 3 buildings. I think by the time you got on, it was about 8.
Yeah.
And it's expanded since then. And our project, when we developed it, was going to be called the Lyric Hotel and Spa. We were going to have a hotel, a full-service restaurant, meeting space that was going to be an old abandoned cotton gin that would be transplanted, and then we added on the spa as a nice place to relax. One thing led to another, and the next thing you know, we were meeting at Trump Tower in New York City, and we signed a deal with the Scion brand hotels, which the Trump Hotel Group was introducing as a new 4-star level brand. Now we're called the Scion Hotel. We're going to be their first hotel worldwide. It's quite an adventure.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Do you still kind of pinch yourself?
I don't know.
Because you started all this with an idea, and now
I started this 11 years ago in my.
I knew you told me that.
I had an epiphany one night about something I could present to the tourism committee at the Bolivar County Chamber of Commerce, how we could improve tourism prospects in Cleveland and attract larger meetings and different events that we were missing because we didn't have all the facilities in one place or easily accessible. It was kind of provincial. You had a separate group for restaurants and meeting spaces and hotels. So let's put it under one tent and see what happens. And, that idea sort of festered there. Then we were able to acquire the land, and we came up with different rudimentary ideas. Boy, it's been through I don't know how many iterations. In the beginning, I just couldn't get people to buy in. I couldn't even convince you. You said the restaurant was a good idea, and
I couldn't buy in because my time constraints. I thought it was a great idea.
Well, thank you. You did give us a lot of great suggestions, and I appreciated all of those. I remember you even telling me, you don't want people to see through the window where the guy's washing dishes.
Yeah, nobody wants to watch that.
And a lot of people
kind of like watching sausage being made.
Exactly right. And a lot of people in Cleveland and the general area have been very generous with their time and suggestions. And it goes back to what I was saying about customer service. Design and construction, the best design and construction doesn't come from this master genius plan. It comes from listening to so many people. And I've listened diligently. I've taken notes. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails back and forth with people, including you. And I've incorporated all those ideas. And I'm thinking to myself, how can it not be at least modestly successful if so many people have had input into it? It's sort of like when you're drawing from a statistical sample. The
larger the sample,
right, the more accurate it is. Or polling data. If you get a big enough sample, your polling data is likely to be more accurate. So
Well, and you on top of that, you have this data of 250,000 people coming through the Delta every year.
true.
And who else has that data?
And it's not just raw data. It's face-to-face interactions. You know,
Yeah.
I see a guy pouring a cup of coffee. I say, hey,
You got a lot of anecdotal data on top of that.
I've talked to people for 30 years. Those face-to-face transactions, that ability, when somebody walks up to me and says, are you the owner? And he has an angry look on his face. It's a half-second delay, but my game face comes on. I say, yes, I am. My name's
It's a half-second delay when you're thinking, should I say no?
I know what's coming. It's a haircut, and I don't have a lot of hair left. But I put my hand out now. It's not fearlessness. It's purposefulness.
Exactly.
I put my hand out and said, my name's Dinesh. How can I help you? So anyway, you know, back to the Lyric project, which is now the Scion. I just feel like it's evolved in such a way, and I would be remiss not to mention how helpful the group from New York has been. I mean, I'm getting all this data input, so I know the local territory really well. They know the big game extremely well. You saw the movie Rocky?
Yes.
Remember, Apollo couldn't find an opponent. The guy backed out or whatever, so he flips through and he picks. That's what happened with us. I mean, out of all the hotels or families or partners that they could have picked, they picked us. And the resources that they bring to our game are amazing.
Well, it's got to make you feel like you're onto something when that kind of brand says, oh, we want to put a stamp on this.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to think, I'm on the right track.
Well, yeah, but I never get overconfident. You know, right track is not what I would use. I would use that it is validating up to a certain point, but it actually is more challenging to prove that they didn't make a mistake.
Yeah, no, I totally understand
so
that.
I feel more responsible to them. But what
you feel challenged a little bit.
Oh, absolutely, challenged and excited.
Because you want to keep up with them a little.
It's a veritable intellectual feast every day. When I listen to the guy who's their head of architecture. I listen to their senior vice presidents of the design and construction and just amazing people. There's one lady who actually came up with the Scion brand. It was they say it's her child, and she's a senior vice president. And you're sitting there in 25th floor of Trump Tower in this granite desk, which is like the size of this room, you know. And you realize the brain power, the money, you know, and the intelligence that flows through that room, and you're there, you know, and it makes you feel excited. These people are on your team. They want me to do well because it's their brand.
Yeah.
They'll do well. It's a good representation of their intelligence too. So we work cohesively as a team. We don't see eye to eye on everything, but we find a middle ground. I give in a lot of times because I realize that they're not doing things out of vanity. They're doing it out of experience, and they relate it to me in that way. They don't say, no, you're from Cleveland, Mississippi, listen to us or whatever. They say, hey, we have this idea.
Why, yeah.
We'd like to present it to you, see what you think. And when I have an idea that I want to present to them, I have the same feeling that, not boldness, but confidence that I can relate an idea to them. It'll be listened to with very receptive ears. And if they shoot it down, they're going to do so in a mathematical and constructive way, and I'll have learned something in that. So the resources they bring are just tremendous. And, you know, we could not have made, when people see the finished product, they'll say, wow, somebody from Cleveland did this? And I said, no. Somebody from Cleveland started this collaboratively and met people from all over Mississippi. I mean, I literally have met people from all over the state and got their input. And then just to add some garnish to the steak over there, parsley garnish, I got these folks from New York to put in their 2 cents worth. And now my interior design lady, she's from the Chicago area. So, you know, we're getting a lot of input. And the landscaping fellow, he's from Orlando. And these guys, he's with the largest landscaping company in the world. I mean, it's just amazing, these resources we're getting.
One of my favorite quotes of all time is Ronald Reagan always said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So you were definitely in the right room.
Yeah. Well,
with that many smart people in there.
The one thing I like to say, a corollary of that, I would never presume to be on Ronald Reagan's level, but a corollary of that is, when I was growing up and very ambitious and kind of arrogant, I used to think that I had to speak out loud and first and firmly, you know, and engage everybody and show that I was the smartest person in the room. And over the years, I've come to find that as I shut up and listen, I hear all these different ideas and so forth. I get to process them and select from the best ideas, create an amalgamation of all those, and de facto, I do become the smartest person in the room by listening as opposed to talking. If you're listening and absorbing those ideas, you become a greater person. And it's almost like by osmosis.
Yeah.
You know, you've done that. And I found that you really engage people. If people feel like you're listening to them and you're taking their ideas seriously, they have to be in a controlled environment a lot of times, or they have to worry about negative facial reactions or bad input from, you know, somebody might send them a terse email or sarcasm or something like that. And if you are engaged and you're listening to people, even if you know about 6 words into the idea that it may not be what you want, they still feel encouraged. It's that open door policy. And they come, and I mean the ideas, that open door policy, that mentality of listening and being in equilibrium when you're talking to people, it really helps you absorb a lot of stuff. And that's what makes the process a lot better. I don't feel like I have to come up with all the ideas and answers myself. It takes pressure off, you know, and I had enough of that over the years.
I talk. Well, I don't know if I was ever arrogant so much as I just talk too daggum much. And being a judge helped me to learn. You know, most of being you talk very little.
Yeah.
Your whole job is to sit up there and listen. And I become a much better listener. I'm not going to be judged the rest of my life, but I think God put that in my path. So I would say, He was trying to say, listen, you got to sit down and listen. Just what I'm trying to tell you. And I had to learn that, listen to both sides. And just like you said, sometimes the defense gets up, and 6 words in, I'm like, there's no way I'm not finding this guy not. I'm gonna find him guilty, but I still listen to their defense, and it really opens some doors you don't realize are going to be open sometimes.
Oh yeah, I agree. If you listen, you become so much smarter by listening to other people and gaining other people's perspective. You may not agree with them, but you realize that your idea isn't quite the slam dunk because this person is in total opposition to what you're saying. You know. So it's worth listening to people.
You know, we do this every week. We try to film something every week, and sometimes we go a little funnier. We went, I think, last time we filmed was at the Indian Bio Arts Festival, and I judged pecan pie. Much different kind of interview. Yeah. But I would be lying if I didn't tell you this. One of the thoughts I had when we started doing this is the ability for me to get to ask almost any question I want of people that I consider to be smarter than me. Oh, wow. And I'm not saying that to butter your bread, as we say in the South, but it really is. It's a great opportunity for me to hear some ideas that where I'm in a position where I have to sit and listen, you know, and I kind of have made it my mission to understand why some people succeed and some people don't, because we all have these great opportunities in this country, and it's real interesting. Some of the things I've heard already from you and other people too. It's been a lot of fun. I know you got other stuff to do.
Yeah. Can I say one thing about
Absolutely.
The listening? You know, I told you I went to medical school.
Yeah.
Eventually got my MBA from Millsaps. I was a full scholarship student wherever I went. When I joined my father's team, so to speak, it was out of necessity. He was about to go broke. He was really struggling because 2 contractors went belly up on him. He lost his life savings on the very first project. So I joined the construction crew, and I was brought up to be the top student and, you know, wear the jackets and ties.
And here you are in construction now.
Well, I traded all the fancy accoutrements for steel-toe boots, Levi's, and, you know, whatever.
Have you still got some calluses? I do.
No, I don't have that many. You got one up on me. And when we were in a bad economic situation, the guys that were there on the crew, they were rough and tough people. Hard-working guys. They put in an honest day's labor, and you know, they were basically your blue-collar workers. People that not only did I not hang around with because, you know, I was the aloof academic brilliant student, is that I really didn't think that much of them growing up. You know, I mean, even though they were a big part of my dad's customer base and the grocery store and the restaurant, I just, you know, I kind of looked at people who were in the military, people who worked with their hands, people who were farmers, like, okay, that's all they could accomplish in life. But when I was down, those are the people I would go because they were so helpful. They would see me struggling with the tools. I mean, I only had the experience of taking wood shop in high school.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing how they would come and help me and so forth. And after about the first or second day of doing that, I realized, I owe these guys a little bit something more than just a simple thank you. So I went to my dad's store and I got a case of Bush beer. It was 99 cents a six pack back then. And I got some chicken from the restaurant. And I saw the reason I did this was because every day at the end of work, they would wind down, they would go to the store and buy the beer themselves. And they would get the chicken and everything. So I preempted them and said, this one's on me. And they were just kind of surprised. The boss's son is sitting in the back of a truck with them. And best move I could have ever made. They told me their war stories. They told me how things worked and everything. And that education I got from it went on day after day. I mean, every day from then on, I was a designated beer buyer and chicken guy, and I could afford it because I got it wholesale.
Yeah.
I didn't really pay for it. My dad knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
But the information and the education I got from them allowed me to one day be able to deal with world-class architects, engineers, design people, all these expensive consultants I've talked to you about.
You had a ground level knowledge.
I had ground level knowledge and practical experience from guys who actually install those fixtures and do so. They not only helped me get through that project, but in each successive project that I worked on, because I worked on the construction crew many projects into it for about the first 10, 12 years. And in working with those guys, I really learned a lot of appreciation for what they bring to the project. And over time, it melted my feeling of, I guess, aloofness or snobbishness. That only educated people are the ones that drive society. It took a little bit longer with some of the other things, like the military folks. As I started employing them, I thought people went in the military because they couldn't afford college, or they came from families. They're some of the most dedicated, hardworking, resilient people you could ever imagine. I've always been proud of the military people that I hire, and it's just amazing when you think that they're signing up and willing to sacrifice their life to defend, ideals that we take for granted, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And I've had a great experience from there. And with the farmers, I thought, they used to come in. I'd seen them since I was 12 years old, moved over here. They always had dusty clothes.
Yeah.
And some of them, this is honestly the truth, back in the days when we had counter checks, they couldn't even sign their name. They would put an X on the thing, or they would hand my mother, like 4 $1 bills, and they couldn't calculate the change and everything. But I've found one of the best resources I have are people who came from farm families. You tell a guy who came from a farm family that he's going to have to work an extra 6 hours to get this thing done.
He totally understands.
That's chump change. Yeah, these guys know, if rain is coming, or, you've got the cold weather is coming, or whatever, you've got to do this thing. You got to pull a double. It's one of the best experiences I've had, and I'm so glad that my boys didn't work very much in my business. But when they did, they reported to the housekeepers. They reported to the maintenance people. They were told to call them sir or ma'am. And it registers with them that everybody is important in the business. And that's why I think we've been modestly successful, because we do treat people with a sense of importance.
When I was about 12, I got offered a job pumping gas for $1 an hour. And I told my dad about it. He said, "Oh, so you want to work?" So from then on, I was on the farm, but I went to work with my dad. I was 12, so went to work with my dad every day. He would take me out there, drop me off at the cotton field with a hoe. Well, when I was about 14, my dad said, "You do not ride to work with me anymore. From now on, you be at the end of the driveway at 6:50, and the farm truck will come through and pick you up." And here I was, this pasty, easily sunburned white kid, 14, with a bunch of black guys in the truck, and I learned all my cuss words I learned right there. But that experience, being with those guys and them, listening to them talk about their real world problems, that we didn't have, but to have a better understanding of the community I live in, the forethought of my dad doing that to me, well, at the time I was like, I wanted to ride to work with Daddy, it was right. Daddy.
I feel the same way. 70% of my workforce is African American, and I work side by side. A lot of my supervisors, because my dad made me work under the people who were there.
Exactly, same thing.
And they were African American. But I like to tell people I don't have any black friends. They're just friends.
Right. No, that's the way I felt about it.
It's like, do you eat Indian food? I said, we just call it food at home.
Yeah. When I go home, I'll say, let's eat some American food, Mom.
I don't see it that way. I mean, I've lived here for so long, and it's just, and I'm very privileged, actually. I can walk in the lobby, and there can be a lot of African American people in the lobby, and I feel very natural in that environment, and I think they see that. And
You're exactly right.
Happy. Yeah.
I think so. And, when I campaigned, and even though I knew everybody in Drew, when I got outside of Drew campaigning and I'm in Indianola, I think people can tell if you're comfortable around them or not, regardless of where they're from. And that ease of me walking up to a house and introducing myself to somebody and not seeing the color of their skin when I did it.
I went to public school, and my friends that I chose to hang out with, it was based upon the fact that I liked them. There was nothing else there. I mean, I was judged in a negative way because when I was in Canada, and I had some instances when I was here in Mississippi because I did not look like everybody else. So I never wanted that to be my way of dealing with other people. I
think we're gonna have to do like a 3-part deal because man, this was awesome for real.
Right, cool.
Thank you so much. I know you got other stuff you got to do.
I don't even know what to turn out.